Slender blue fingers trembled as she held the medical scanner, its holographic display confirming what seemed impossible. The pregnancy test was positive. She sat alone in her pristine laboratory aboard the Astran research vessel, surrounded by equipment that had never before detected something so extraordinary. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Her daughter, Hannah, rushed in, her silver-flecked skin flushed a deeper shade of blue with excitement. "Mother, I need to tell you something." Before Hannah could continue, Jin-Ah noticed her daughter's hand resting protectively over her abdomen, a gesture she herself had been making unconsciously all morning. "You're pregnant," Jin-Ah stated, her inner eyelids fluttering with emotion. Hannah's expression shifted from surprise to shock as she nodded. "How did you know?" Hannah asked, moving closer to her mother's workstation. The laboratory lights reflected off their iridescent skin, creating subtle rainbow patterns on the white walls. Jin-Ah turned her medical scanner's display toward her daughter. "Because I am too." The revelation hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Both females stood in silence, processing the magnitude of their situation. Their minds raced back to their recent 3-month research exchange on Earth. The Shaw Institute for Xenobiology had hosted them for a groundbreaking study on cellular regeneration. There, they had worked closely with Dr. Sunho Park, a brilliant human geneticist whose innovative approaches had earned him respect across multiple star systems. "It has to be him," Hannah whispered, her voice barely audible over the soft hum of laboratory equipment. Dr. Park was the only human male we had sustained contact with during the optimal conception period. Jin-Ah began pulling up their research logs on the holographic display. "According to our biology, astrans can store genetic material for up to 2 Earth years before conception occurs. Our bodies naturally select the most compatible genetic patterns for reproduction." The timeline aligned perfectly. Both women had worked late nights with Sunho, sharing meals, laughing over cultural misunderstandings, and celebrating research breakthroughs. Their species' natural ability to absorb and store genetic material through prolonged proximity had never before resulted in cross-species conception. "The Council will never believe this," Hannah said, sinking into a nearby chair. "They've maintained for centuries that human Astran reproduction is impossible. Our genetic structures are too different." Jin-Ah's scientific mind was already racing ahead. But what if they're wrong? What if our reproductive capabilities are more adaptive than we thought? She began pulling up genetic sequences on multiple screens, comparing human and Astran DNA patterns. "We need to run more tests," Hannah suggested, her research training kicking in despite her emotional state. "If we can document everything properly, maybe they'll have to listen." As they worked through the preliminary analysis, Jin-Ah couldn't help but remember Sunho's kind eyes and gentle manner. He had treated them as equals, not exotic aliens to be studied. His genuine passion for understanding life in all its forms had drawn them both to him. "Should we tell him?" Hannah asked the question that had been nagging at both their minds. Jin-Ah considered carefully before responding. "We need to be certain first. If our pregnancies are viable, if these truly are hybrid children we carry, it will change everything. Not just for us, but for both our species." They spent the next several hours running every test their advanced medical equipment could perform. Each result confirmed their initial findings. They were both carrying healthy embryos that contained unmistakably human genetic markers. "Look at this," Hannah pointed to a particular DNA sequence. "The human genetic material has been modified somehow. Our bodies have adapted it to work with our own DNA structure." Jin-Ah felt a mix of scientific fascination and maternal pride. Their bodies had done what generations of scientists had claimed was impossible. They had found a way to bridge the gap between species, to create new life that carried the best of both worlds. As the ship's artificial day cycle began to dim, mother and daughter sat together, sharing the quiet moment of discovery. Their silver-flecked skin glowed softly in the fading light, and both felt the weight of history settling on their shoulders. "Whatever happens," Jin-Ah said softly, "we face it together. Our children will be the first of their kind, proof that the universe finds ways to bring life together, even across the stars. Hannah smiled, touching her mother's hand. Do you think Sun Ho ever imagined he'd become a father to the first human Astran hybrid children? I think he'll be more fascinated by the scientific implications than anything else. Jinnah chuckled. Remember how excited he got when we discovered that cellular regeneration pattern? They laughed together, but both knew the challenging path ahead. Tomorrow, they would begin documenting everything, preparing their case for a council that would likely reject their claims outright. But for now, they simply sat together, two generations of Astran scientists on the verge of changing the galaxy's understanding of life itself. The grand hall of the Astran Science Council loomed before Jinnah and Hannah, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of their world's twin suns. They stood side by side, their research tablets clutched tightly as they prepared to present their unprecedented findings. Head researcher Mireille sat at the center of the curved council table, her silver-streaked skin marking her advanced age and status. 12 other council members flanked her, their expressions already showing signs of skepticism. You claim to carry human Astran hybrid offspring. Mireille's voice carried a note of disdain. Do you understand the gravity of bringing such impossible claims before this council? Jinnah stepped forward, her voice steady despite her racing heart. We have extensive documentation of our pregnancies, including genetic analysis showing the human DNA markers. She began projecting their research data onto the hall's holographic display. Impossible, Mireille declared, cutting off the presentation before it could properly begin. Our species cannot combine with human genetics. This is basic biology. Dr. Jinnah, I expected better from someone of your standing. Hannah moved to defend their research. But our bodies have adapted the human genetic material. We've documented the entire process. Enough. Mireille's skin flashed with angry patterns. This council will not entertain fantasies. Either you are attempting to deceive us, or you've allowed your time among humans to cloud your scientific judgment. The other council members murmured in agreement, their skin patterns showing a mix of disappointment and embarrassment. Jinnah felt her professional reputation dissolving before her eyes. Later that day, Hannah received the message she'd been dreading. The Stellar Institute was reviewing her position in light of recent events. By evening, she had been officially dismissed. In their family pod that night, mother and daughter sat in their comfort chamber, surrounded by the soft bioluminescent glow of their home's living walls. They didn't even look at our evidence, Hannah said, her voice breaking. Jinnah noticed how her colleagues now turned away when she walked the research facility's corridors. Decades of respected work, countless breakthrough discoveries, all seemingly forgotten because she dared challenge their fundamental beliefs about species compatibility. We need to be more systematic, Jinnah said, pulling out a fresh research tablet. If they won't believe our initial findings, we'll document everything so thoroughly they can't ignore it. They began creating detailed records of their pregnancies. Hannah focused on tracking the genetic changes in their bodies, while Jinnah developed new testing methods to monitor the developing embryos. Word of their claims spread quickly through the scientific community. Former colleagues stopped responding to their messages. Research partners withdrew from ongoing projects. The isolation grew with each passing day. I saw Sun Ho's latest message, Hannah mentioned one evening, scrolling through her communications. He's worried about us, but he's also fascinated by the preliminary data we sent him. Jinnah smiled sadly. At least someone still believes in scientific inquiry. Here, among our own people, they prefer comfortable ignorance to uncomfortable truth. Their family pod became their sanctuary and laboratory. They converted the spare room into a medical monitoring station, using equipment they'd managed to acquire before their professional exile became complete. Look at this, Hannah called out one morning, pointing to her scanner display. The human DNA isn't just combining with ours, it's creating entirely new genetic sequences. The babies are developing their own unique genetic patterns. Jinnah leaned in to study the data. Our bodies aren't just accepting the human genetics. They're actively working with them to create something new, something that's never existed before. They worked tirelessly, recording every detail of their pregnancies. Physical changes, genetic shifts, hormone levels. Nothing was too small to document. If the scientific community wouldn't believe them now, perhaps future generations would understand the truth. As their bodies change, showing the first visible signs of pregnancy, the whispers in their community grew louder. Some called them delusional. Others suggested they had been corrupted by their time on Earth. A few even claimed they were part of some human plot to undermine Astran genetic purity. But in their isolation, mother and daughter found strength in each other and their growing children. Each kick, each new development, confirmed what they already knew. They were carrying the next step in evolution, proof that life finds ways to bridge even the vastest differences. They'll have to accept the truth eventually, Hannah said one evening, watching the sunset through their pod's transparent walls. When our children are born, when they see living proof of what's possible. Jinnah placed her hand over her daughter's. Until then, we keep working, keep documenting, keep believing in what we know is true. The universe is far more remarkable than they're willing to admit. Outside their pod, their world continued to turn away from them. But inside, 2 new lives grew, carrying in their very cells the proof that the boundaries between species were not as fixed as anyone had believed. Jinnah's makeshift laboratory hummed with activity as she adjusted the sensitivity of their genetic sequencer. The converted room in their family pod had become their research sanctuary, filled with equipment they'd managed to save before their professional exile. The morning light filtered through the pod's translucent walls, casting rainbow patterns across their work surfaces. "Mother, look at this pattern sequence," Hannah called out, her eyes fixed on a holographic display showing strands of DNA. The human genetic material isn't just sitting dormant in our cells. It's actively changing. Jinnah moved to her daughter's workstation, studying the complex dance of molecules on the screen. Their bodies had stored Sunho's genetic material for months before conception, but the process wasn't as simple as they'd initially thought. "See these marker proteins?" Jinnah pointed to specific sequences. "Our bodies didn't just accept the human DNA. They've been modifying it, adapting it to work with our own genetic structure." They spent hours analyzing blood samples, tracking how their bodies had processed and altered the human genetic material. Jinnah's scientific training helped her recognize patterns that others might have missed. Subtle changes in protein structures, modifications to base pairs that made the impossible combination possible. Hannah focused on their reproductive systems, documenting how their bodies had prepared for these unprecedented pregnancies. "It's like our bodies knew what to do," she said, reviewing another set of test results. They found ways to make the human DNA compatible. Their research revealed something extraordinary. Astran biology was far more adaptable than anyone had believed. Through sustained contact with other species, their cells could gradually modify foreign genetic material, making it suitable for reproduction. "Think about it," Jinnah said, excitement making her skin shimmer with bioluminescent patterns. "All those centuries of believing we couldn't interbreed with other species, what if we just needed enough time for our bodies to adapt?" They documented everything meticulously. Hannah developed new testing protocols to track the ongoing changes in their bodies. Each day brought new discoveries, new understanding of how their biology had accomplished what everyone thought impossible. The babies grew steadily, their development following patterns that were neither fully human nor purely Astran. Jinnah and Hannah created detailed records of every change, every milestone, building a scientific foundation that no one could dismiss. "Look at the cardiovascular development," Hannah pointed out one evening. "The hearts are forming with elements of both species, but in a completely new configuration." The holographic image showed organs that combined the efficiency of human hearts with the resilience of Astran biology. Their isolation from the scientific community, while painful, allowed them to focus entirely on their research. They worked without the constraints of traditional thinking, following the evidence wherever it led. Jinnah discovered that their species' ability to modify genetic sequences wasn't limited to reproduction. Our entire cellular structure is designed to learn from other life forms, she explained, showing Hannah a time-lapse of cellular interactions. We've probably been adapting to Earth's biology since our first contact. We just never noticed. Regular communications with Sun Ho provided valuable human medical perspectives. His excitement about their discoveries helped balance the rejection they faced from their own people. This could revolutionize our understanding of genetic compatibility, he wrote in one message. Your bodies are doing what our most advanced genetic engineering can't achieve. As their pregnancies progressed, they documented changes in their own bodies. Their skin developed new patterns of bioluminescence, their cellular structure subtly altered to support their hybrid children. Each change provided more evidence of their species' remarkable adaptability. We're not just carrying babies, Hannah realized one day, reviewing their latest findings. We're witnessing evolution in action. Our bodies are creating a bridge between species. Jinnah spent long hours comparing their current genetic structure with archived medical records. The changes were subtle but undeniable. Their bodies had transformed themselves at the most fundamental level, all to make these new lives possible. The implications stretched far beyond their own pregnancies. If astrons could adapt to human genetics, what other possibilities existed? How many other species might be compatible, given enough time and contact? As their research expanded, mother and daughter found themselves at the forefront of a new scientific frontier. In their small family pod, converted into a laboratory, they were uncovering truths that would eventually reshape their society's understanding of life itself. No matter what happens, Jinnah said one evening, watching Hannah record another day's worth of data, we've proven that life finds ways to connect, even across the stars. Her daughter smiled, both of them knowing that their children would be living proof of that truth. Jinnah's fingers hovered over the communication panel, hesitating before sending their research data to Earth. The message would take hours to reach Sun Ho, even with their fastest quantum channels. Hannah stood beside her mother, both of them feeling the weight of this moment. He deserves to know, Hannah said softly, her hand resting on her growing belly. And we need his help to confirm our findings. The data package they'd prepared included everything: genetic sequences, development charts, cellular adaptation patterns, and detailed medical scans of both pregnancies. They added a personal message explaining their situation, the council's rejection, their isolation, and their continued research. Hours later, the response came. Sun Ho's holographic image appeared in their lab, his expression a mix of shock and scientific curiosity. This is remarkable, he said, running his hand through his hair. If what you're showing me is accurate, it completely changes our understanding of genetic compatibility. We've been documenting everything, Jinnah explained, sharing their latest test results. Our bodies didn't just accept your genetic material. They modified it, adapted it to work with our own DNA structure. Sun Ho's lab on Earth became their lifeline to the wider scientific community. He ran his own tests on the genetic samples they'd sent, confirming their findings through human medical science. Each verification added weight to their research. Look at these marker proteins, Sun Ho pointed out during one video call, sharing his screen. They're unlike anything we've seen before. Your bodies have created entirely new genetic sequences to bridge the gap between our species. Hannah spent hours discussing the implications with him, their scientific excitement bridging the vast distance between their worlds. The embryos are developing their own unique biological systems, she explained. They're neither fully human nor purely Astran. Their regular communications became a bright spot in their isolation. Sun Ho's genuine enthusiasm for their discoveries helped balance the rejection they faced at home. He shared their findings with trusted colleagues on Earth, building a small but growing network of scientists who understood the importance of their case. We're seeing similar patterns in other areas of xenobiology, Sun Ho told them one day. species adapting to each other in ways we never thought possible. Your pregnancies might be the first documented cases, but I doubt they'll be the last. Jinnah noticed how Sun Ho's expressions changed when they showed him the developing babies through their advanced imaging systems. Behind the scientist's curiosity, there was something more personal, a growing connection to the children he had unknowingly helped create. "They have strong heartbeats," he said during one scan, his voice softer than usual. "Both of them. Their cardiovascular systems are fascinating, more efficient than either human or Astran hearts." The support from Earth strengthened their resolve to continue their research. Sun Ho helped them develop new testing protocols, combining human and Astran medical knowledge to better understand these unprecedented pregnancies. "We're writing a new chapter in evolution," Sun Ho said during a late-night discussion. "Natural selection found a way to combine our species' best traits. It's beautiful, really." As their pregnancies progressed, the bond between the three scientists deepened. They shared not just research data, but hopes and fears for the children's future. Sun Ho began learning more about Astran culture, while Jinnah and Hannah studied human family structures. "Whatever happens," Sun Ho promised them, "you have allies on Earth. These children represent something incredible, proof that life finds ways to connect across the stars." Their daily communications became a routine, bridging the gap between worlds. They discussed everything from genetic markers to baby names, from scientific implications to practical concerns about raising hybrid children. Jinnah watched her daughter grow closer to Sun Ho through their conversations, seeing how their shared scientific passion had evolved into something deeper. Despite the distance, despite the unprecedented nature of their situation, they were becoming something like a family. "We'll find a way to make this work," Sun Ho assured them during one call, after discussing the challenges ahead. "The children will have support on both worlds, even if some people aren't ready to accept them yet." In their family pod, surrounded by research equipment and bathed in the light of distant Earth's transmissions, Jinnah and Hannah felt less alone. They had found an ally who understood both the scientific importance and the personal significance of their journey. The first breakthrough came quietly. Du Yun, an Astran botanist working on Earth's agricultural colonies, submitted her medical records to Jinnah and Hannah. She and her human partner were expecting a child. Then Young Ho, a human xenobiologist, reached out about his Astran mate's pregnancy. Jinnah's research station, once silent and isolated, began buzzing with activity. Each new case provided more evidence supporting their initial findings. Their family pod transformed into an unofficial research center for studying human Astran reproduction. "Look at these patterns," Hannah said, comparing genetic data from multiple pregnancies. "Every case shows the same adaptive sequences we discovered. Our bodies are consistently modifying human DNA in identical ways." The scientific community could no longer ignore the mounting evidence. When 3 more cases emerged within a month, the Astran Science Council called an emergency session. Jinnah and Hannah presented their research again, this time backed by data from multiple pregnancies and Sun Ho's Earth-based verification. Head researcher Mireille sat in stunned silence as they displayed the combined findings. The genetic adaptations were undeniable, the pregnancies unmistakably viable. What they had dismissed as impossible was happening across 2 worlds. "We've been understanding our own biology wrong," Jinnah explained to the council. "Our species didn't evolve to be isolated. We evolved to adapt, to learn from other life forms, to grow beyond our original limitations." The council chambers erupted in discussion. Some members argued for immediate funding of expanded research. Others wanted to establish new medical protocols for monitoring hybrid pregnancies. The rejection they had faced months ago transformed into intense scientific curiosity. Hannah's research on their reproductive adaptability became the foundation for a new field of study. Scientists from both worlds began examining other potential genetic compatibilities, discovering that Astran biology could adapt to various species given enough time and contact. Their paper, Adaptive genetic compatibility in cross-species reproduction spread through the galactic scientific networks. The publication combined their personal case studies with broader research on Astran cellular adaptation. It explained how their bodies could modify and integrate foreign genetic material, creating viable hybrid offspring. Research institutions that had once shunned them now offered funding and resources. Jin-Ah found herself leading a new department focused on xenogenetic studies. Hannah's insights into reproductive adaptation earned her a position more prestigious than the one she'd lost. "We're seeing similar patterns in other species pairs," a colleague reported during a research meeting. "The ability to adapt and combine genetic material might be more common than we thought. We just never looked for it before." Sunho's contributions from Earth added crucial perspectives to their growing field. Human and Astran medical knowledge combined to create new understanding of both species' potential. Their research sparked interest in studying other possible combinations across known spacefaring races. The medical community scrambled to establish protocols for handling hybrid pregnancies. Each new case provided more data, more understanding of how two different species could create new life together. Jin-Ah and Hannah's careful documentation became the blueprint for these procedures. Recognition came from unexpected places. The Galactic Science Academy, known for its conservative views on species separation, awarded them their highest honor for breakthrough research. Their work had opened doors that many thought would remain forever closed. "This changes everything we thought we knew about evolution," one Academy member said during the award ceremony. "Life finds ways to connect, to combine, to create new possibilities. We just had to open our eyes to see it." Private messages arrived from couples across the galaxy, hoping to understand their own chances for children. Jin-Ah and Hannah's story gave hope to others who had been told that their love could never result in family. As their own pregnancies progressed successfully, they continued documenting every detail. Their personal journey had become part of a larger scientific revolution, proving that the boundaries between species were more fluid than anyone had imagined. The breakthrough they had fought so hard to prove rippled through multiple fields of study: genetic research, evolutionary biology, reproductive medicine. All had to adjust to new possibilities. What had started with two unexpected pregnancies had grown into a new understanding of life itself. The protest crowds gathered outside the Astran Council chambers, their skin flashing angry patterns in the morning light. Elder Kita stood at their head, his voice carrying across the plaza. "We cannot allow our pure genetic heritage to be polluted by human DNA," he declared, as news drones captured every word. Inside the chambers, Jin-Ah and Hannah watched the demonstrations on multiple screens while preparing for another council session. Their growing bellies now made their pregnancies visible to everyone, drawing both curious and hostile stares. "They fear what they don't understand," Hannah said softly, watching the protesters. But beside the angry crowds, another group had formed. Humans and Astrans stood together, holding signs supporting interspecies families. Their numbers grew larger each day. The media coverage spread across both worlds. News outlets began sharing stories of other human Astran couples, their successful pregnancies, their hopes and challenges. Each story helped shift public opinion, showing that these relationships were built on love and understanding, not contamination. "Look at them," an Astran mother said in one popular broadcast, gesturing to her human partner. "We're different species, yes, but we're both living beings capable of love. Why shouldn't our love create new life?" Earth's governments took the first step, passing laws protecting the rights of hybrid children and their families. The legislation recognized them as full citizens, entitled to all the benefits and protections of both worlds. The Astran Council, faced with mounting pressure, began drafting similar measures. Jin-Ah found herself speaking at public forums, explaining the science behind their pregnancies in terms everyone could understand. "Our bodies didn't make a mistake," she would say. "They found a way to create something beautiful and new." The conservative backlash grew fiercer as more cases emerged. Elder Kita's followers claimed this was the beginning of the end for pure Astran genetics. They demanded laws banning human-Astran relationships, but their voices were increasingly drowned out by calls for acceptance. Hannah's research center became a sanctuary for other expecting couples. They came seeking medical care, advice, and most importantly, community. The center's waiting room often held both species, sharing stories, and supporting each other through their journeys. "We're creating a new kind of family," one human father said during a support group meeting. "Not human, not Astran, but something uniquely beautiful." His Astran partner's skin glowed with joy as they discussed their future child. Major media networks began producing documentaries about the first wave of human Astran families. They showed the couples in their daily lives, preparing for their children, facing challenges together. The stories humanized what many had seen as a purely scientific issue. Public opinion shifted dramatically when the first human Astran baby was born to a couple in one of Earth's colonies. Images of the healthy child, showing traits of both species, touched hearts across the galaxy. It was harder to fear something when it had such an innocent face. The Astran Council finally passed comprehensive legislation protecting hybrid families. The laws guaranteed their rights, established medical protocols, and created support systems for interspecies couples. Earth's governments quickly followed with similar measures. Elder Kita's protests grew smaller as more Astrans embraced the change. Some of his own followers left when their children formed relationships with humans, forcing them to confront their prejudices directly. Jinnah and Hannah watched the societal transformation from their unique position as both scientists and expectant mothers. Their initial struggle had sparked a movement that was reshaping two worlds' understanding of family and love. "We're not just having babies," Jinnah told a reporter during an interview. "We're showing that life finds ways to bring people together, even across the stars." The story ran on both worlds, becoming a symbol of the changing times. Support groups sprang up in every major city on both planets. Human Astran couples shared resources, advice, and friendship. Their children would grow up in communities that celebrated their unique heritage rather than feared it. The prejudices didn't disappear overnight, but they weakened with each new success story, each healthy birth, each demonstration of love crossing species boundaries. What had seemed impossible months ago was becoming the new normal, one family at a time. The medical wing of the Astran Research Center buzzed with anticipation. Jinnah was in labor, her skin pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that marked the final stages of pregnancy. Hannah would follow within days, according to their doctor's predictions. Sumin arrived first, her cry echoing through the birthing chamber. The medical team gasped as they examined her. She was perfect. Her skin held the subtle shimmer of Astran biology, but with a warmth that spoke of her human heritage. Her eyes, when they opened, showed the distinctive silver flecks of her mother's people alongside human coloring. 3 days later, Hannah gave birth to Taiho. Like his cousin, he displayed a remarkable blend of both species traits. His tiny hands already showed the neural sensitivity of Astran skin, while his cardiovascular system matched the robust efficiency of human hearts. Medical journals across two worlds documented every detail of their development. The children's health readings exceeded expectations, their hybrid biology creating strengths neither species possessed alone. They adapted to both Earth and Astran environments with ease. "Look at how they process light," one researcher noted, watching the babies respond to different spectrums. Their eyes could handle both the intense brightness of Earth's sun and the softer illumination of their Astran homeland. Sun Ho visited as soon as travel protocols allowed, meeting his children for the first time. His hands trembled as he held them, watching their skin respond to his touch with gentle patterns of light. "They're miracles," he whispered, tears in his eyes. The children grew quickly, showing remarkable development. Sumin walked early, her hybrid muscle structure giving her unusual strength and grace. Taiho displayed cognitive abilities that blended Astran pattern recognition with human creative thinking. Their early years became a study in the potential of hybrid genetics. Research teams documented every milestone. every new ability. The children's immune systems proved particularly fascinating, combining the best defensive capabilities of both species. They're not just surviving, Jinnah explained to a medical conference. They're thriving in ways we never imagined possible. The evidence was undeniable. The children were healthier, stronger, and more adaptable than either humans or astrans alone. As they reached school age, Sumin and Taeho became living bridges between their parent species. They moved easily between human and Astran communities, their natural diplomacy helping others overcome lingering prejudices. Other hybrid children followed, each new birth adding to the growing body of research. The medical protocols Jinnah and Hana had pioneered became standard practice, helping ensure healthy outcomes for interspecies pregnancies. Our children aren't just a new species, Hannah told a documentary crew. They're proof that love finds ways to overcome any barrier. The footage of the children playing, their skin glowing with happiness, touched hearts across the galaxy. The scientific impact of their births continued to ripple through multiple fields. Geneticists studied their unique DNA patterns, learning new principles about genetic adaptation. Medical researchers used their cases to develop treatments that could help both parent species. Sunho established a research foundation focused on supporting hybrid families and studying the long-term implications of human Astran genetics. The foundation became a crucial resource for other couples following in their footsteps. As teenagers, Sumin and Taeho began speaking at conferences themselves, sharing their experiences growing up as the first of their kind. Their presence inspired other young hybrids to embrace their unique heritage. We're not half of anything. Sumin held a youth gathering. We're whole new beings, carrying the best of both worlds within us. Her words became a rallying cry for a new generation of hybrid children. Their legacy extended beyond genetics. The success of their families showed that love truly could transcend biological barriers, paving the way for other interspecies relationships. What had begun as an impossible pregnancy had grown into hope for the entire galaxy. Jinnah and Hana watched their children grow with pride, knowing their struggle had changed the universe forever. In their children's eyes, they saw the future, one where differences bred strength rather than division, where love knew no boundaries, and where life always found a way to create something new and beautiful.